Morning, everybody. Welcome to the special public meeting of September 29, 2018 of the Township of Washington Township Council. Adequate notice of this meeting was given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by the Township Clerk to at least 2 newspapers emailed on September 24, 2018, and this notice has been posted on the Township Bulletin Board and on the Township website. Please notify the Township Clerk for any disability requirements necessary for attendance at mayor and council meetings. The fire exits are located through the double doors to your right and through the door on your left. Please silence all cell phones. Will everybody please stand for a salute to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, can I have a motion to open the meeting up to the public?
How about we do a roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilman
I'm
Bruno?
skipping.
Councilman Casio?
Here.
Councilman Cumming? Councilman Ullman?
Here.
Council President DeSena?
Here. Now, may I please have a motion to open
So
the
moved.
meeting?
Second.
Would anybody else like to come up and address the council?
Roll
at this-
call?
Oh, I'm rushing.
Where's your head, Mike?
Hello.
Not Saturday. I'm
Saturday
sorry.
mode.
Sorry,
Saturday
everybody. Go ahead.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Now, would anybody like to come up and address the council at this time? Mr. Billius?
William Billions, 580 Walnut Street. Current Director of the Fire Department.
I know this meeting, I believe, is for the restructuring or the planning phases of our town. We, at the fire department, do realize there are quite a few things in this town that need to get done. We are strongly asking for the township's support in the project for the firehouse, whether it be a new firehouse, which we believe financially is the right way to go, or renovating the current, which I don't think is financially responsible. But, you know, as the fire department, as an ex-chief, we came to this council, well, not to this council, but to the council years ago looking for fire trucks. They wanted to do firehouse studies. We've done firehouse study now. Now it's time to move on. I know Fire Chief Incetta wants to address the council, so that's why I'm up here right now, stalling pretty much for the
Well, you have two more
Public-
minutes of stalling, Mr. Billius.
But just a comment that was made a couple council meetings ago. We're not asking for the Rolls Royce of firehouses. We went into the meeting with the architects very responsibly, did not ask for anything crazy. The architects recommended the bunk rooms, just to bring it up to standards in what the times are right now. Fire trucks are getting bigger, they're getting more expensive. We were just down in Wildwood for the convention, spoke to a few vendors. Metal prices are up. That $1.1 million fire truck is now probably about 1.3. The prices are not going down. Fire department needs a lot. We need trucks, we need proper house for them. And I hope this council thinks of that, thinks of the town. The town might be growing in size, with possible homes being built on the other side. We need the equipment, and we need to keep our guys safe and up to standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billius. Would anybody else like to come up and address the council at this time?
How you doing? Frank Aiello, 307 Richard Boulevard North. Like the director said, I've been on the department now for 11 years. The only thing, the trucks are getting bigger and our door spaces are tight, I can actually tell you by sitting in the back of the tower, and while we're pulling out of the building, you have inches. If there's snow on the ground, that truck will not get into the building. It's just becoming more and more dangerous. We have, our gear racks are right next to the exhaust of the vehicle. Guys are donning their gear on, and you have, diesel fumes, you know, surrounding you while you're getting dressed. God forbid you trip. You are right next to a fire truck that's pulling out, and you have the potential of getting run over. The building itself is just, you know, falling apart, you know, from years of not being maintained correctly. You know, we have a giant hole, you know, over the roof of one of our engines. That stuff just drips on it. You know, it drips out of power outlets. It's really that the building is just not held up to, you know, standards anymore. And hopefully you guys, you know, agree and, you know, to renovate or build new, and either way, it's, you know, it's something that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aiello. Chief?
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Pete Incetta, 519 Monroe Avenue, Chief of the Volunteer Fire Department. I know there's been discussions about the building and everything, so when the comment was made, maybe we need to speak to the fire department. So that's why I'm here. So just a couple of points I'm going to address. The fire building. Everyone has seen the presentation, so we don't have to go into that, but the fact that the building is 53 and 63 years old, if you look at the initial building, and then the addition to it. I did take offense to the comment regarding Rolls-Royce of buildings we were designing, and actually the previous administrator made a comment of we were designing the Taj Mahal. This renovation proposal was created by the architect based on the needs assessment. Anything regarding a new building was to give us an idea of what the cost would be, and there's no specific design plans. So there is no Rolls-Royce, there's no Taj Mahal. It was based on what we have and what we should have. Regarding separate offices for the chief. Currently myself, the deputy chief, the battalion chiefs share an office approximately 8 feet by 8 feet, with one desk, one computer, all the department files. Show me an employee in town hall that shares a small space like this. My 4 lieutenants and captains share an office of an L-shape 18 feet by 7 feet, one workstation, computer, and that also stores department files and equipment. Regarding bunk rooms and showers, I know it wasn't really brought up by the architect, but during any storm or emergency-related incident, we have slept over at the firehouse. Normally, we go upstairs, we set up cots on a meeting room floor, or even sleep on the floor or on the chairs. Personally, during one storm, I slept on the office room floor so I could monitor the radio communications. Showers. With all the carcinogens that are released during fires, and we can all remember 9/11 and the poor firefighters that are dying still till today, we have nothing at the building. Members have to actually take this stuff home with them to take a shower after a call. The ladder truck and shared services. Frankly, we're not talking about a garbage truck. If a garbage truck doesn't show up, you can call residents up and say, hey, we're going to be there in a couple of days. This is a piece of emergency equipment. This could potentially cause loss of life if it's not ready for a response. Show me any town that can say they will be 100% available all of the time to respond to our town for fire calls. Additionally, it was brought up, but nothing was said about how this will affect the town as a whole, specifically the ISO ratings, that's the Insurance Services Organization, which affects the insurance rates for the residents. Our last rating, I believe, was in 2013, which is a 4 out of 9, which is not that good. Emerson tried this years ago and it was found after a study was commissioned that a ladder truck is needed. I believe they spent $15,000 on that study with Bill Peters' company. And frankly, it's not going to be a council person that's going to be standing on the front lawn when things go bad and the news is there. It's going to be the guy in the little white hat, the chief, or members of the fire department. Regarding comments to a transition to a paid department, well, we are currently 100% volunteer right now. The cost that the town has to incur for our members is a clothing allowance and a contribution to LoSAP, which I believe for this year was $135,000 total. My personal clothing allowance as a department head for 57 members / employees, because they are considered employees, is $4.50 a day to do this. We don't get salary, overtime, benefits, pension payments. All our training on top of calls is done on our own time, no additional costs incurred. I went so far as to go onto the National Volunteer Fire Council website. They provide a calculator, what your volunteer fire department saves you per year. The spreadsheet compares current members, equipment, and calculates how many paid personnel will be needed to give the same type of service. So I did that using Ridgewood Fire Department paid salaries. With an average salary of $88,000 per paid fireman, and the personnel needed, a career department would cost this town, each residence, an average of $2,217 per household per year, with a total annual savings of $7.1 million. I would urge you, gentlemen, and town residents to go onto the site. I have it here. It's www.nvfc.org/cost savings calculators. And just to close, this is a volunteer fire department. Is this where you want to start cutting money? I've heard other comments made about excessive overtime in town. That doesn't come from us. Maybe we should look elsewhere for some of these costs. I printed out some of the things so you can see exactly what I put into the calculator. I'll leave these here on the table for you gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Would anybody else like to address the council at this time? Seeing no one, do I have a motion to close the public discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Resolution 18-305, authorized contract with Dutra Excavating for backwater valves. Gentlemen, this is the discussion we had at our last council meeting. There was some issues brought out about the finances to fund this additional work for the backflows for the residents, and it was resolved. Do I have a motion to proceed with this resolution?
What was the resolution?
18-305.
No, I mean, what was resolved? The money?
The money is in the budget from last year. We all received that information in an email. And the email is also attached to the resolution.
Looking for a motion?
I need a motion, please.
Motion.
Second?
Pass.
Second.
Mr. Bruno seconded it. Roll call?
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on. Today's meeting is to the beginnings of creating the strategic 10-year plan for the township. I've created a 11 by 17 spreadsheet. I took the 2018 capital plan for us, and I just kind of offset it for the next 10 years. So I think the first way to start this is if we identify all the projects that the council feels are big items. You know, I know we have the firehouse, we have the DMF, we have the fire truck, which was originally the two fire trucks were originally shown. Actually, 3 fire trucks were in the original capital plan for 2019, but if we don't have the new building built, we should push that off a little bit if everybody's in agreement. We had the radio system upgrade this year with the $750,000 being spent next year. We just received the proposal yesterday, which is up for discussion on Monday night. We have the DMF, and we have other things to discuss. So if anybody would like to throw any other things out there that I haven't mentioned. Mr. Bruno, Mr. Ullman? Mr. Clement?
We have to discuss how we want to refinance
The bands, yeah.
the bands. Memorial Field is not on the list. Property acquisition, the DMF building, I think those were some of the
Yep.
larger ones.
Yeah, I had that, yeah. I missed Memorial, thank you.
So, I mean, I think it's fine to identify the capital projects. I think one of the items or something that we need to consider is where do we think the town is going to be in 10 years? You know, what is the vision as opposed to identifying a spend and, you know, figuring out if it can be afforded. You know, something as simple as land acquisition. So there was a suggestion that we acquire some property to support the DMF on a main county road as we enter the town. Is that where we want to spend money, and is that where we want the DMF to be situated? I don't know. I think, you know, that's something to be discussed. You know, there's a piece of property opposite the library on Schlegel Lake. You know, it's currently underutilized, in my opinion, by the current owners. You know, would the township benefit by acquiring that land and creating a park on the lake for its residents? You know, we have
Don't we have DeMartini Park right on the opposite side of the lake? I mean,
is that utilized? I mean, you know, it is on the other side of the lake. It's not near anything that anyone, you know, if you're at the shopping center and you buy something to eat and you want someplace to go eat it, within walking distance, where do you go? You know, again, you may not think that's an expense that's worthwhile. I think it should be discussed, though.
absolutely, yeah, I'm putting it on the list.
You know, you know, do we want the firehouse to be located on that piece of property? Is there other property that can
You
it
say
be
that piece of
moved?
property, Mike, the current piece of
The
property?
current property. You know, do we want to develop that property, continue to develop that property, or is there other land in town that's available? And, you know, is that property, is the current firehouse property developable in another manner? You know, is there a demand for commercial property or, you know, professional offices in town? So I think that,
So
you know,
are you
we
making
can,
a recommendation that we look at inserting commercial property in town? I mean, is that where you're going, that you want to put on the list, or?
sure. I mean, so, again, we have a list of capital projects. We could certainly prioritize it and bang them out and be done in 15 minutes. Or do we want to figure out where this town is going and what we want? I mean, I just took a walk around Memorial Park. Yes, we've put some tremendous effort into it, but, you know, it's not on this, you know, 11 by 17, and it's something that certainly needs to be redeveloped. Maybe not a turf field, which I oppose, but certainly there is an opportunity for development there. So, again, I think if we want to prioritize a list of capital projects, you know, we need Ashley here to figure out how we're going to spend it, what's going to be the impact to the residents, and we'll be done in 15 minutes. If we want to talk about where we think this town is going, I think that's a much broader discussion that needs to take place, and that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman. So we've added the acquisition of Schlegel Lake property behind the library and finding commercial property viability. Is that correct, Mr. Ullman? Are you okay with that?
Sure.
Mr. Cumming?
I wonder
Anything else that you'd like to add to the list?
I'm sorry, yes, I wonder if such a scenario or report is usually provided by a master planning professional to the council. We can hack things out as amateurs with many talents amongst us for hours and hours and hours based on our outlooks. But I think we need an overall plan, and perhaps that plan would best be developed by recommendations from
Well,
a
the master
professional.
plan is, the planning board is revisiting the master plan, right? They're rewriting it now as we speak? The professional is writing it for the town?
Supposed to be.
Okay.
Mr. Cumming, you say supposed to be. Are they doing it, do you know, or is it in the
I'm
process?
not
They
aware
didn't
of
start?
of
You
how
don't know
far
what-
along it is.
I thought
Okay.
T&M was hired
I
to do it.
can answer that, yeah.
Can you answer that, Pete?
Yeah, T&M was
Mr. Mayor.
hired. The board, the chairperson of the board just selected a couple people to work with them on the master plan. I believe they're having their first meeting this coming week with those two people.
So it's in the
But-
works?
Yes, it
Okay.
has been started.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the master plan has been started, Mr. Cummings?
Yes.
Thank you.
I concur with Mr. Cummings. You know, that's their job. You know, they're professionals. You know, if you want to make suggestions, as Mr. Ullman stated, I think that now might be a good time to do so before they get too far along. But, you know, let the professionals do it and see where it goes.
Well, I mean, we've talked about the need for parking. Nowhere is there an identification of commuter parking. There was some, rumblings about opportunities across from Seasons. I don't know if those are coming to fruition, if there is, anything other than some background rumors. But if, we're going to present ourselves as, the transportation hub of the lower valley and, park here and hop on the parkway and quick ride into the city, and that's why you want to come to the township, should we discuss that? Should that be on the list?
Absolutely.
So, and that takes, someone has to think that through, come up with an approach, speak with the owners of the property, and again, determine if that's something that we want to explore, because that may open up if we decide to keep the existing firehouse facility and property, and we don't have to allow for the commuter parking. Perhaps there are other ways to situate the building, or other manners to use that land. And again, I think it's has to do with a vision, a complete vision, versus looking at these projects individually.
Mr. Bruno?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree. I sent an email out yesterday,
Yes.
and so this, Mike, is what we had?
That is what we had for 2018, and I left spaces in there
Oh, okay.
to include 2019, 2020,
Gotcha.
2021. And the first part of this session was to brainstorm all the things that the council thought, like Mr. Ullman's been doing and
Right.
Mr. Cummings been doing, and myself, that we thought the town needs.
Okay.
If we start revisiting everything and just keep studying everything to death, I mean, everybody sat up here and approved the study of the firehouse at its existing location. And we sat up here and asked the ambulance corps to move there. And now to think that we should study moving the firehouse where in town, I don't know. And starting all over again is preposterous to me. It's just incredible. It's just a delay tactic. We have a study. The firehouse fits where it is. I mean, I understand what you're saying. We need to have the professionals tell us where to put stuff. But we know we need a firehouse. We know we need a DMF building. We know we have to pay off the $6 million plus in bands. There's work at Memorial Field. To think about acquiring other pieces of property at this point in time is crazy. I think we got to fix our own house first before we start looking at other things. I know it's part of the whole master plan, but this was in order to figure out what we're going to go to bond for. Ashley said we have to bond the $6.5 million in bands by June of 2019. So in this list, already for 2019, there's $5.1 million based on what our budget approved for in June of this year. So if you take that 5.1 and you add the 6.5 million, we're gonna be bonding like $12 million next year. And I think we need to figure out at this point, what else we need to bond next year. We know the DMF remediation has to be done by 2021. If you start looking at the chart, 2021 is not that far away. And that's a $250,000 problem this council has inherited based from past administrations. I think that's what my impetus was to have this meeting today. It wasn't to, add more to it. I think we need to sit down and figure out, we already know, we've already made, kind of put it on paper that next year is $5.11 million. And we didn't even put down that the bands are due in June of 2019. So that's where I was going with this meeting, gentlemen.
Mike, may I?
Sure,
Jump in?
Mayor.
Thank you. Mike, you took a lot of the words out of my mouth, but I went back online and looked starting at 2011, just at a random year. The renovation to the firehouse has been on since 2011. Replace the tower ladder 41, been on since 2011. DMF started 2013. Like Mike said, we have to act on these things. They have to be the priorities. We've been promising these organizations these upgrades, not us, this body, but councils in the past have been promising these organizations these things now for 5, 6, 7 years.
Or more.
Yeah, you've been on here the longest, Steve, so, to do more studies at this point, I agree with Mike DeSena, Where else are we gonna put a firehouse? The DMF, in light of the news we got the other night about having to remediate, I think it just says more, let's move it to another place, that way we can take that building down after a new one is built, they're moved, we deal with it in a proper fashion. So, to me, the three main priorities are the DMF firehouse and our radio upgrade for next year, because that has to do with safety also. And those, we've been promising, not this body, but councils in the past have been promising this to our volunteers, to our workers in the DMF. It's time to act. The studies, we did the space study a couple of years ago for DMF. We've been putting them off. We did the firehouse study. There's no reason to not have it at the current location. It's time to move on these few projects right away. We can certainly study all the rest of the stuff, but we do have to take immediate action on some of these. So thank you.
I appreciate, that input, and I agree with Mr. DeSena and Mr. Mayor Calamari with the things that are on this list. They are just perpetuating a long history of being on budgets and nothing ever gets accomplished. And the way I look at this list is what is the most beneficial things to improve this town. And my order is a little bit different. And I know that the mayor and council president met with the county executive yesterday, I believe.
Correct. Yes.
And, to me, the intersection is one of the biggest problems in this community.
So Dr. Cassidy, just to stop you there on the intersection, Mayor Calamari and I met with the county executive and the chief of staff yesterday. I'll give everybody a quick little update on that.
Well, I understand.
He promised to, they still have not completed the plans that we were supposed to have 2 weeks ago. We will have them in the next week or two. And he has promised us, as long as we acquire the property that's necessary for the project, it will go out to bid in a preliminary timeline of going out to bid in October, November of 2019, with construction to start in 2020. He's given us, as long as we continue on the ground we're working and acquire the property that's needed for the project and sign the agreement, it will go out to bid.
And I understand that, but I think that's still our #1 priority.
Absolutely.
Okay? I don't care because things have happened in the past. We've been promised that, we're going to get it done this year, and for whatever reason, it didn't happen. There was resolutions, and to me, that is the biggest safety factor in the town, because the fire department and the police department have to get through that intersection, and you can't right now because there's always a backup there, and once you get traffic moving, that's going to help everyone. It's the biggest safety factor in town, I believe, okay? The second thing is what you mentioned about the DMF. We've had studies to keep it here. There's an issue with the remediation that wasn't brought to this council's attention, and it's going to cost us $500,000, $500,000 more now because it wasn't acted on in the past for whatever reason, and I won't even go into that. I think that should be number 2 on the list for me, to save $500,000. And as the chief talked about, talking about having a paid fire department is ludicrous, okay? Because it's going to cost us more in 1 year to hire people than it is to construct a new firehouse where it is, okay? And the fire department has been waiting for major equipment and major renovations to that facility for the longest time. And I apologize to them because it should have been done already, okay? So those are my 3 big things on the list. They're already on our schedule to do, and that's my priority at this point. Whether we can do the firehouse immediately, because it's a huge undertaking, it's a lot of money that we'll be putting out to the residents. At least, if we can't do that, and I know you talk about, you want to have somewhere to put a new truck, because the truck's old. Our newest truck is 1987 rig, right? Is that what we have?
No, sir, 2006.
2006, so you're talking a good 12 years old? That's an old piece of equipment.
Yeah,
okay?
And that's the newest one.
And that's the newest one, okay? And that's not even our, probably use the most. The other rigs are. And even if we don't have a place to store it, I would say at least if you're not going to do the firehouse, because it's a big, not saying that we're going to do it, do it immediately, at least you got to get them the major equipment for safety in town. And I kind of disagree with Mayor Calamari with the radio upgrade for next year. I think as a township can get by without it. It needs to be done, but that's a huge nut. There's other alternatives, I think. Obviously, we got to get it done in the next couple of years, but I would just kind of change that order a little bit, Mr. Mayor. So those are my big things. And to Mr. Ullman's point about looking at other properties and acquisitions, I agree there's things that we can do to work with the master plan and improve the overall scope of the community, and that does have to be looked into, but I think that's something that we have to look at currently, but those things are not right now on the radar. I think these items are things that need to be done again. Intersection, DMF to save $500,000 at its current site. I don't think we should move it. And again, do something for the fire department, whether it's, go out to bond for a new firehouse or at least get new equipment, okay? That's really what
By
I
the way,
say.
it's going to be bonded.
Well, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I mean, I don't want to put the taxpayers in such a bind, because we're doing everything at once, that the taxes go through the roof, okay? Because that's what'll happen if you try and do all this stuff at
So,
once.
regardless of what projects are decided on, the taxpayers are going to incur these expenses. We have been in a defer. We have $6 million in bans. A decision was made based on an interest rate structure that has disappeared. So we were rolling these. We have not been paying them down, only the absolute minimum. And we have bans that are, 10, 15 years old. It is time to pay the piper. So those $6 million should be permanently bonded, and any major capital projects that we decide on should be permanently bonded as soon as possible, because the interest rate structure is going nowhere but up. We had another 25 basis points at the last Fed meeting. They've talked about 2 more before they even contemplate stopping. So our cost of funding is going up. We need, regardless of whatever we decide, and if we decide to do nothing, we decide to do nothing. If we decide to do everything, we decide to do everything, but we need to permanently bond. The thought of these bans and this short-term borrowing is like these 0% interest rate credit cards. It's great, you buy it, but someone has to pay, and the township has to pay.
Mr. Olmo, I agree with you, okay? The time to put something into a long-term debt is now, before the rates go up, okay? And this is something that should have been done on a regular basis, paying stuff down. You know, I'm not in the interest of getting my Visa card and paying a minimum of $35 every month, okay? I believe paying it off as soon as possible, okay? And have no interest, but that's not the way government works. But again, I don't want to incur a huge debt to the populace. And I understand that it will go up. I understand how the basis points work. But what can we swallow? That's the problem. What can we swallow, and what's the best thing to swallow first?
Well, again, firehouse, let's say, firehouse with volunteer ambulance, a proposal was given, let's say there are pluses and minuses. Let's say we land on $5.5 million. I don't think that's unreasonable. It's below what they're currently estimating. Let's say that's where we wind up. DMF, to redo the building in the current space is there's $500,000 in remediation that needs to take place, or $300,000. A new building, again, the low end of some of the estimates, 1.5 or 2 million, let's say 1.5, plus the remediation gets us to 2 million. We're at 7.5 million. The fire trucks that need to be brought in are another 3 million in total. I don't even know where that brings us to. 10? Plus 6 million.
16.1.
Is 16 million. I mean,
And I think the biggest one we're forgetting about, Dr. Cassio, I disagree with you on the radio system upgrade. It is something that we've been deferring now for the longest time. It is a huge safety issue for our volunteer fire and our paid police, our volunteer ambulance corps. It needs to be addressed. It's been deferred, as Mr. Ullman, I like that word. It's been deferred by councils for the longest time, I think even farther back than the firehouses. It needs to be addressed, and I think we need to, I'll leave it at that. We need to have some more discussions with the police department and the fire department about the radios. There are some serious issues with it right now, and they've been like that for a long time, and I think it's a disservice to every citizen in this town if we don't get that fixed right away.
Listen, if that's how you feel, that's fine.
Yeah.
I have no, obviously public safety comes number one. If they feel it's a huge issue, then I will concur. I have no problem with that. But again, you're talking huge numbers, and what's going to do the best service for the township.
That is something I feel that is very important to every citizen in this town. So I would put that in my
Then put it at the top of the list.
Yeah.
If you want, I'll defer and I'll go to the top list. I'll actually knock off the intersection to number 2. Okay?
I think,
That's,
I don't know how long, I know some of you, I've only been on here for the last 9 months, but I've heard about this thing, for the radio system upgrade, for years, and I think you have too, Mr. Cassio.
yes, I've heard a lot of things about radios, and there's a lot of information that goes both ways.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I'm not a communications expert.
So I know the
Don't
mayor
pretend
has
to
gotten
be.
us a proposal to get us a study done for that, so.
Mike, may I make a couple of comments?
Sure, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Steve, I'm sorry the intersection was left off. I agree that's a high priority, but it's one that we are not directly controlling. And as Mike DeSena said, our update yesterday was, probably not shoveling the ground, unfortunately, until
Right.
late 2019 or 2020. But yeah, that's
But,
very high also.
Whether we control it or not,
Yeah.
we have, the township has stalled that project for over 10 years.
And that was
Okay?
brought to our
We all agree on that.
That was brought to our attention,
So I
that's
expect the administration to put that at the top of the list, since it's been at the bottom of the list forever.
Well,
And I know we
whenever-
don't control a lot, but we have money and things we have to do, and I urge the administration to get on with land acquisition, okay, and find out exactly what our needs, not our needs, our responsibilities are for that, and to fast track it.
As soon as the county tells us, we're ready.
I want that done.
We all do.
I want that
We share
done.
that,
You
I
know, that's-
believe. I don't want to speak for everyone, but,
You know, I've been
yeah.
being a pain in the butt about it since I've been on the council.
Yep.
It's been stalled, and
Yep.
I will stay on the council until that project is done, the firehouse gets done, and the DMF gets done.
Yep.
Those are major things in the town.
I certainly
And I will
agree.
stay here until it happens.
Right.
When it happens, I will resign. I tell you right now. I will give up the ghost. All right?
I also want to mention that most of us up here in the past 2-3 years have done some major tax cuts for the citizens. Part of that was because the money wasn't getting spent. And so why take the residents' money if it wasn't getting spent? I look at it now as that also it wasn't getting spent. Now it's time to spend money. If we have to bring the taxes up to at least where they were, you know, we saved probably a couple hundred a year in taxes in the past few years. If we have to bring those back up to where they are, because now we are getting things done, I really don't think the township residents mind that. They, you know, not that anyone expects an increase, but they probably see that we didn't take it because it wasn't getting spent. At least now we bring them up because the town does need a lot of work. And again, to tag on, you know, what's been said about rates going up, if rates are going up, let's get a lot of these projects done. Why wait another 2-3 years when rates may only be even higher? You know, it's a bitter pill to swallow that, you know, we're in this position that the town needs so much work. But, you know, here we are. And so, you know, those are my reasons
We
to...
never should have been put in that position. That's the
I
problem.
think we all agree on that also.
I think we also need to be sensitive to the impact of salt on our taxpayers. I mean, we're capped at 10K. I know I'm over 10K. I'm sure a good portion of the town is. So when we start talking about increasing taxes, it's not an increase that is a 65% increase. It's a 100% increase. So there's no longer that deductibility. Don't know how long that will last, but for the moment, anytime that we increase taxes by $1, it's $1. It's a full dollar, not some tax-affected increase.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Council President,
Yes, Mr. Fuller.
Sana, I really admired your summary of the situations and where we are and the studies that have been done relative to things such as the firehouse, the DMF, and so on. And I think where we have a good feeling, firm reporting, and a good study on the firehouse that I was privileged to be in on the meetings, they were not asking for Shangri-La. They were not asking for a Cadillac. They were given what they needed by experienced architects who've designed many such similar things. I thought your summary was well thought out, well given. I agree with you. It's been deferred. Many of these things have been deferred to the point now where, as Mr. Ullman points out, the Fed is raising, and it's going to cost us more and more. It should have been done for 10 years. We're catching up. I hope the taxpayers will understand. It has been our goal to keep taxes level, or it's hard to say reduce them. Almost never ever happens.
I've never seen it.
It's a goal. It's a goal. It's a goal.
goal.
But we have to catch up with the deferred work and projects for the last 10 years. And I think we're all in agreement on that. Thank you.
Mr. Bruno?
Yeah, I mean, with respect to taxes, we actually had 2 years of tax decreases. In 16, 17, was 15, whenever it was we started. I think a lot of the money wasn't spent, and I think the budgeting techniques were horrible. So it was a combination of where we saved. But, you know, I sat down yesterday and sent something out in terms of what I thought would help. And, you know, again, I just feel we're going around in circles. And my first two lines were identify capital projects, equipment needs, wish list, immediate needs, prioritize all projects.
Isn't that what we just did, Mr. Bruno?
I don't think so. And then we went through.
Why do you disagree with that?
Because I don't think we prioritized the whole town, what we want to do with the whole town. My other issue.
Well, I asked
My
for,
other
I
issue
asked,
was
I
that-
asked
I'm
for the
sorry,
comment.
Can I finish?
No, but I just want to,
Okay, so I just want to finish. My other comment that I said here, which is the most important thing, because now we're talking about taxes, was to estimate the total cost involved, develop cash flows, identify available cash reserves, unused ordinance, grants, the $1 million school money, what do we want to use from our surplus, because this is all money that we just added up to whatever Mike did, 10 million, and some of this brings that down by a couple of $1 million. So, you know, this is what has to be done. We don't have a CFO in place. We're still sitting here going back and forth, and, you know, what's the game plan? What's the financial game plan? And what are we going to pass to the taxpayers to say, listen, guys, ladies, gentlemen, this is the cost, this is the plan, here's when you can expect your taxes, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think we're at that point.
I disagree with you, Mr. Bruno. I think
That's fine.
we've identified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different items. Mr. Ullman kind of put numbers to them. The township in Westwood just passed a referendum for our school of $23 million, if I'm not mistaken, which was a tax impact of $131 a year. Don't quote me on that, I don't have the figures in front of me. So I don't think if we think we're not gonna have a tax impact on these, we're fooling ourselves. And we need to, it's been 10 months that I've been here, and we've been hearing, these reserves need to be found, and we need to find out where they are. I know we have the $1 million from the sale of the school, but we keep getting hit with using these unused ordinances because of things that weren't taken care of in the past. We lost $187,000 for the remediation. We're gonna lose another $250,000 for the continued remediation and the effort. We have other liabilities that we need to take care of also from the prior administrations that we're working on.
I agree, 100%.
So I think, the reason for this meeting is to identify, so far we've identified 10 things, put a capital dollar to them. Like I said before, if you take what we put in our 2018 budget, we showed $5.11 million in liabilities for 2019 that we were supposed to bond. We all saw that, it was there. And if you add the $6.1 million, like Mr. Ullman has brought up, which I agree, we pushed that can down the road as long as we can, those bans, and they're gonna come back and bite us big time in 2019 when we bond them permanently. So you're at, 5 and 1 is 11, so we're like 11.2 without any projects.
I agree.
Well, current projects.
11.2 without any projects. No firehouse, no DMF, no property acquisition, no commuter parking lots, just the bans and what our needs are for 2019. We're gonna go out to bond for 11.2 million, gentlemen. That's the numbers, Bob. I don't know what else we need to, that's what we're looking at in 2019.
But you just said you didn't have a firehouse.
No, I said without the firehouse, it's
I understand
11.2.
that, but.
So you add the
Right,
firehouse
so
to it,
that's
it's
my point.
16.4.
I understand that. So my point is, we need to, what is it that we want to spend the money on in 19 and start getting it done? What do we want to do in 20? And then lay it all out, let Ashley or somebody give us a cash flow, what the impact is every year to the taxpayers, and then it's a known commodity. And we still have millions of dollars sitting in these bank accounts that we can use to offset the 11 million or 16 or whatever number we're even talking about, and bring that down a couple of $1 million.
Well, what do
So maybe 1 year is free, because we use some of the money.
Well, what would we like to add to the 2019 list that we didn't add this year in our budget, gentlemen?
But that's what I'm saying. So where do you want to put the firehouse?
I'd like to see it done in 2019, I'd like to bond it in 2019.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
2019.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. And where do you want it, and the intersection?
The intersections already, we already put $400,000 in the budget in 2018, Mr. Bruno.
That's for the land,
That's for the land and all the soft costs.
right? And then, well, I think we kind of guessed on the number and said 400,000, but that's fine. And then you don't think there's anything else after that?
At this point, until we get the land costs back from the appraiser, we won't know. I mean,
So
so,
firehouse in 2019,
yep.
the soil remediation,
Well, the soil remediation, I wanted to see in 2020 with the DMF going in 2020.
so DMF building and soil in 2020.
If
Just to be
that's-
clear, do you view that as, at the current site, or do you look at it as moving?
I'm looking at, listening to Mr. Sarlo's presentation on Monday night and hearing the pros and cons. One of the things that the mayor and I heard yesterday is that the new county facility at New Bridge Crossing, we were given years ago a shared service agreement with the county to go get our salt there, which would eliminate the need for Washington Township to own a salt shed and maintain salt and buy salt. That's cheaper than what we buy it for. So I'd like to see this administration look at going into a shared service for a salt shed, from the county itself right down the block, and also for fueling services. You know, there's a fueling station down there. It's brand new, state of the art. It's open 24/7. It's programmed to a key fob. It works great, so that's another thing. So Mr. Sarlo's proposal would change a little bit in numbers, because hopefully we can do some shared services.
Yeah, and again, just to continue on that for a sec, Mike, also when you fuel up with the card, it keeps track of then when the vehicles need maintenance, and, you know, they suggested we start to give them another look at maintenance, because those two would tie in. They could send us monthly reminders, because they know we're fueling, to say, hey, this vehicle's coming up for maintenance.
Yep.
And-
So, Bob,
and we wouldn't have to store the salt, like you said. We would just drive down the road, get it as needed. We wouldn't need the headaches of a salt shed. So
I think if
yesterday's
you
meeting
get-
was very
I think if
enlightening.
you get rid of the salt shed, that takes up a lot of square footage. You have plenty of room to put the DMF right on this piece of property, just where it is. That's
Yeah,
my
my
opinion.
initial thought process back when was, and this is when we looked at the Bethany Church, was to knock down the DMF building, and if the ambulance was gonna move with the fire, take the DMF folks and place them in the ambulance building for their offices or whatever they need, use that garage to help, and then build a nice, I call it a shell, where they can put their equipment in there and work in there, and it's heated and it's air conditioned and it's modern. I don't know if we have to do a whole full building, but if we, and I don't really know what's in the ambulance building, but if we can take them, move them to the ambulance, knock that down, build a nice shell where they can work in there, put some equipment in there, you know, put the heat, put the air conditioning, make it modernized, and then, you know, it saves a few dollars, and they still have their offices in the ambulance and the garages there.
Well, based on the environmentalist, the building has to come down in order to do the environmental remediation.
I understand.
So that, we're not keeping, at this point, you know, keeping the existing building is not a viable option. I mean, based on
No,
what we
I-
heard.
But the ambulances,
No, keeping the ambulances, yeah.
And then you can put up a nice shell. I call it a shell, but.
I mean, the proposals that we saw for the DMF were for housing the entire fleet undercover, which took up quite a bit of space. There was discussion, as Bob is saying, to reutilize the ambulance building and pivot the structure onto the Oritani side and have the DMF located there, and it would create some increased space and increased maneuverability. But, you know, if that's not what's being considered, I think, you know, we should just, you know, say that and strike it off the list.
Strike off the current site, Mike?
Well, it sounds like the decision's been made to,
Well, I don't think any
I don't think
decision's been
any
made.
decisions were made. We just said Mr. Sarlo's coming in on Monday night to show us the study he did.
And I just would like to correct something for the audience, whoever's listening. The original space study had enclosing all the vehicles, but we had pulled that out for Mr. Sarlo's part because everyone decided from that original study, no reason to store all those vehicles indoors.
So I was looking at, for 2019, the addition of the firehouse, and I would like to find out what money is available that has been budgeted for Memorial Field that hasn't been spent, and do something more at Memorial Field with maybe, you know, lighting or something like that at Memorial Field in 2019, to start, you know, instead of having a huge number later on, if maybe we could do the lighting next year, or do some more upgrades on our sprinkler systems, or do some drainage work next year on Memorial Field. You know, do a real capital project there, maybe a few capital projects there instead of one big capital project. So I'd like to put some money into Memorial in 2019 and see if if, like Mr. Bruno said, there's money probably in funds from previous years that we could look at, and maybe that could pay for the capital project there.
There are ordinances that say memorial.
Correct, like we have the 140 that wasn't spent, right? Or
That was engineering fees. Now,
But maybe we can transfer
maybe
that
give
into-
that back,
yeah, put it into
and then
cap.
take it back.
Yeah.
But there are also
Mr. Cumming, how's the grass
ordinances
down
that say
there?
that.
How's the grass doing at Memorial Field, in your expert opinion?
It's coming along as well as it can. Finally we did aeration and seeding, and it's about right in September to be seeding for the next year and even for the remainder. Has anybody been to a football game over there? How's it looking? I hope it's smoothed out.
I have not been down there, to be
It was
honest with you.
clumpy. I know I'm planning to go this afternoon to watch the grandchildren participate.
So I
And,
walked it this morning.
And what?
I walked it this morning.
And what did you see?
It is, it's, where it exists, it's green.
Mm-hmm.
There are bare spots, you know. I question, and I think you raised it, is, you know, we seem to put the field in the same spots, using the same lines, and we beat the crap out of the middle of the field all the time.
It's very tough.
We've had proposals that showed the field running on a diagonal from corner to corner, avoiding the baseball fields. You know, it seemed like it was a good idea for turf. It seemed like it was a good idea in proposals, but we don't put it into practice. So I don't know why we continue to just beat the crap out of one section, but perhaps, you know, the Recreation Department can explain that, if there's a reason why we don't try to move the field and the orientation to limit the impact, the repetitive impact on the field. The other thing is, you know, we had talked about the wood chips. You know, we had a monumental rain event during the week. They've washed quite a bit out. You know, if we're talking about, you know, we want to talk about a strategic plan, I don't know if throwing wood chips after wood chips is the thing to do. You know, perhaps, you know, we invest and make a compliant playground with, you know, a rubberized surface. So maybe we could add that to our efforts here.
I could ask the administration maybe to ask the Recreation Department, maybe they can move that field.
I will.
Reline it, so we don't have that issue. It has been suggested numerous times, for numerous years. Maybe you could have a little input there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The use of the field, the continual use of the field, and the amount of use it gets between the after-school program, the rec program, and then sports it's tough on it. It's very tough on it. It's very hard to grow a good turf because we're getting holes. We had an enormous hole after one of the slip and slide toys was placed up in one corner, and it was absolutely torn out. You know, we do the best we can.
One other thing I'd like to throw out there, we expect to have, I always lose track, RFP or Q ready in the next couple of weeks to go out for grant writing services again. We're being told that there is grant money around for fields and for fire apparatus. There's nothing available for fire houses or buildings, but there is money out there, so we're hoping to defray some of the costs on those two things with some grants.
Yeah, our congressional representative said there's plenty of grants out there for equipment, especially
Right.
Fire trucks.
Right.
I think either Garfield or Teaneck got one basically for
Correct.
free.
Yeah. And
Free,
so
a
now-
free fire
Now
truck.
now that the firemen have their new software, they have the right statistics that the grant writers asked for
Okay.
in connection with the grants. Heretofore, their software was so backdated that they couldn't give the statistics that the grant
Request.
thank you,
Yeah.
asked for.
So getting back to our list, Mr. Bruno, we had 2019, we had Firehouse and looking at Memorial Field upgrades. 2020, some DMF,
And soil.
and soil remediation.
That's
Yeah.
one project.
Yeah, I'm considering that one project,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
The soil remediation and DMF in 2020.
Intersection was 2020, 2021?
2020 is intersection, but we should have already incurred all our costs by that point, with the exception of the police department requirements for the construction contractor.
Well, we're going to look into land acquisition for that.
19, we should have the
As soon as we
numbers.
get the
We should-
things from the county, which they
Yeah.
said next couple of weeks.
Next
Yep.
couple of weeks. I mean, that money's in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So
And
we can
that's the-
proceed with
The first thing
acquiring
we've
the
asked the
land.
engineer to identify as soon as he gets the plans, we need
That
land.
that has to be pushed quickly.
Yes, because we need to get appraisals and we need to get the agreements.
Start the
in place.
negotiating process, yeah.
Can the fire trucks be staggered to the fire guys out there?
I'm sorry,
Can you, well, we have 3 trucks in 1 year. So you have a ladder truck, and 4.
I'm sorry, the spreadsheet had
Is there a double?
is a double.
Right, but can we, if you, can you do one in 19, one in 20?
Yeah, that was one of my discussions, Mr. Bruno. We did put in a ladder truck. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry.
We had discussed if we did the ladder truck. As far as the budget, I don't know who put in the capital that 650,000. We didn't ask that originally, but we had talked about doing repairs and stuff so we could offset the time. That's why we asked for all the money in the repair budget this year, so we
So
could
we
push
look-
off.
So do we want to get the engine 44 replacement and hold off the ladder truck until the building's built? Can we do that, or do you want the ladder truck first and then engine 44 second? Is
Again,
what
we
Mr.
run
Bruno's
into the
asking.
problem of the opening. That's why we discussed holding off the ladder until we had some sort of idea about the building itself.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, the problem with what?
The actual
get it in.
door opening.
Yeah, okay.
The door opening right now is 10 foot 1.
Yeah.
So the other design for the truck was actually, we designed the truck to fit the opening.
Right.
So we had to bring it down. That's why we were considering holding off.
So do we go with the engine 44 replacement in 2019 and move the ladder truck to 2020?
We can look at it. I think we might be able to do it depending on, after all the repairs are done, and see what shape the truck is in itself. That is our oldest piece. That's built in 1986, delivered in 1987.
And now, with an issue, we use, if there's an issue, because I know that truck was out of service for a while, because I think it wasn't going up and down. And
Yeah, we had that- we had a
Did you
problem
use
with-
Hillsdale?
At the time, yeah, we were
when it was
using
in-
mutual aid, but we're full back in service.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
we were using the Hillsdale truck? Or anybody available?
We were just asking for mutual aid, so depending on, per call, whatever it was, who was available.
Okay.
So if we can move ladder truck fire department to 2020, are you okay with that? For the ladder truck?
I think we can do it. I think we can do it.
And the county executive was very, he says they have trucks available for us to use in a jam, and I think we've used their trucks in a jam before.
We had an issue with using the Academy truck previously because of the shape of the apparatus.
Okay.
So we will look at that. As far as ladder trucks, I do not believe they're loaning any of those out. I think it was only that they had fire engines, actual pumpers.
Okay.
That they were utilizing.
And if we move it to 2020, you'd have to order it in 2019, I assume?
Yeah, you're looking at probably up to a year build time.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So,
And engine 44 the same?
yeah. Because previously we've gone out to bid, so, we have to have the whole bid process. We were looking, I believe it was the Texas Cooperative, when we designed the ladder truck just now, where it wouldn't be bid, we could just purchase directly from the cooperative. The issue with that, if there was any equipment coming, it would have to be almost a separate bid. So we'd get the truck from one, and anything that we were putting on the truck, air packs, things like that, would have to be separate from another vendor.
Okay. So we okay with, if we do that? Fund the engine 44 for 19 with delivery in 20, and fund the ladder truck in 20 with delivery in 21?
I can make it work.
So we still got, so we're just moving the 1.5 million, gentlemen, to 2020.
Or some of it, I would assume. He's gonna order it in 2020, you get it in 2021?
Yeah, that's what was just said.
But you wouldn't pay for $1 million, well, I guess.
Well, we'd have to bond $1.5 million to go out to bid for it, so we'd have to have the money in hand, right? We can't buy it without having the money on hand.
Yep.
And if you look at the last two trucks we purchased, we actually had put some money up, and it was a cost savings, because we did purchase the chassis ahead of time. I think it was about $50,000 we had saved, Jay.
The last time the truck was spec'd out between the Houston Gallatin project and a prepaid chassis, I think some of you were there for part of the presentation on it. I believe some of you were here for the presentation of that on the original cost, what was that, 2 years ago, when we were originally looking at the tower. Between the prepaid chassis and the Houston Galveston project, I think it was a total of almost $80,000 to $100,000 that I was able to save the town on with just a prepaid on that and the project. Obviously, it didn't move forward, couldn't get the approval from the previous mayor on it to go ahead for the prepaid chassis on that, and then the whole project fell through, but that's another almost $100,000 savings there between those two. And I believe the same things are available for the purchase of an engine.
If we
The Houston-
prepay the
yeah,
chassis.
Houston's still
The
available?
prepaid chassis and the Houston Galveston project, which on an engine was probably gonna be close to, if I had to guess, probably about $60,000 to $70,000
Okay.
on the prepaid.
So if we
for that.
pay that while they're putting the shell on it, we get a big savings, okay?
Correct.
All right.
You know, we talk about a budget time to put some money aside
Yep.
every year for these bigger projects. You know, put 100,000 in year after year. This way, we're not hit with this, big chunk for $1.5 million or 650,000. I think it's a smart way to go.
Well, we should show a line item for fire department of,
You
I'd say,
should. Major equipment, line
throw
item, and every year you throw
$35,000,
$100,000
$50,000 every year into it for major equipment. And so in 10 years, we have $500,000, and we're only looking at $150,000 bonding instead of $650,000 like we are now.
Woodcliff Lake does that.
Yeah, everybody
That's
does
how they
that.
do it.
We're
They
gonna
just-
do it for our own ambulance corps, we
Yeah,
might as well do it for these other
I mean, why
departments.
not? It's just that, when you want to buy a new car, you put a couple dollars away every month until you have it. and
I just don't want to
purchase it.
lose sight of two things. One is we really need to determine what we want as surplus, because we have a chunk of money there, 3.9 million or so, and we have $1 million from the school. So it's for almost $5 million, just in two big numbers. So-
But I thought we had to keep $1.2 million of that 3.9 always, right?
No, you don't have to, you have to keep something.
Yeah.
So let's just say it's let's say it's 2 million. So you have almost another
3 million, 3
plus
million.
the million is 3. So there's some, that's why I'm harping on this, because this money's been sitting there, and we can use that, and that have the big tax impact also. I mean, it's not gonna go anywhere, this money. It's been sitting there for umpteen years doing nothing, so let's, and if we all, as a team, say, okay, we wanna keep $2.5 million as surplus all the time, that's fine. Then you still have a chunk of money.
Yeah, you still have $2.5 million roughly.
Right.
And that would pay for basically,
Well,
both
you
your
get a
trucks.
truck, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Or half a building, or DMF.
Or half a building or DMF, yeah, absolutely.
Which half do you want?
My office.
Your office in the
Take
garage?
that.
Okay, you got
I'll
it.
take that half.
It's gonna be a big
And
office.
I know the number is $650,000, I'm not saying we're going to spend $650,000. Myself and Jay can take a look, we can come up with some preliminary numbers for an engine. I mean, I'm proud to say back in '03, '04, when we started the other two trucks, I did two trucks for $658,000. That was the engine and the rescue. So I'm not going to, I'd love to spend it all. I'm not saying I'm going to, but I mean, if you want, we can come up with some figures, just looking up some stuff and give you an idea.
In the next couple months, that'd be great before
I mean,
budget season starts,
It's
to
easy enough
plug
to
real
talk to
numbers
some
in.
vendors. We have them, one that lives right in town, down the block from me, so it's a matter of a phone call and saying, hey, we're looking for XYZ truck, and just give me a ballpark.
You know what the hardest thing up here is when we talk about a budget? What's the real cost? What's the real cost? Is it 600,000 and then it comes in at 4, or you ask for 600 and it comes in at 7? Because, you know, you talk 100,000 here, 50,000 for every line item, it adds up.
Oh, yeah.
And the last thing I want to do is double tax a resident. And that's the
I'm one of
hardest
those
thing.
residents, I gotta reach into my pocket.
Yeah, you got to
and
reach into the pocket.
I hate to be the guy to come up
It's very
here
hard to come
to...
out with $4,000 every year, or every 3 months, and pay the Township of Washington. Okay?
I can't
Or
wait till I
whatever
go get
your
my
number
coffee
is.
this week, and they're gonna be pointing at,
Yeah,
How
of
many
course.
millions do you
It's your
want?
fault. But, you know, we really like to have, accurate numbers, and
But
we
I'd like-
appreciate it.
Yeah, and if we can include all the soft costs to those numbers, because I know sometimes, we pay $658,000 for the two trucks, and then they come in and they got to be lettered, they got to be radios installed, they have to get Scott packs, they got to get rigs, which it's understandable, but if we could have an all-encompassing number.
No, that's
Or
what
even
I'm-
if you say, hey, it's 600 for the truck, but I know I'm going to need 50 grand in lettering and lights and this and that, whatever it may
no,
be.
it's all gonna be included. In fact, the last two trucks, I think we were within less than $2,000 of what the number was.
Okay, well, that's why, because I hear that, when you read the paper a lot, that's what you hear is, hey, such and such got a new fire truck, but now they can't use it because they can't get, they didn't put enough money in the
I
budget.
served on the
for-
last committee with the chief here, and the companies were willing to work with us a little bit on it, where, as he said, we were able to come in just under what we were budgeted for and get everything that we
Included.
needed on it, minus the equipment, which I believe some of you were here when those came in, and one of the comments that was passed us is, well, where's all the equipment? Because, well, we were given this to build these two. The cost of the metal at that time was actually still going up on that. We were able to build that, but without, as you're talking, the soft costs, I mean, we can give you numbers and get you numbers for pretty much the whole thing.
With
on
the soft costs.
On the soft costs on it, and as I said, once we get into the process of it, they're willing to work with us. Almost all the companies, whoever we choose to purchase from, are willing to work and can flex a little bit on it to help us keep within
The budget.
those means.
Okay,
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
all right, thank you, gentlemen. 2021, gentlemen, I would still say we still, 2021, we need to address Memorial Field, so I'd like to put some money in there as a placeholder.
Mike, before you go on, just one other thing, the DMF folks out there,
Yep.
these two trucks,
Well, they're getting those this year, right? That they were going to look into replacing it with the chipper and the body of to hold the chipper is what I thought we were looking at,
The 170,000?
and the 45
The 45 is in
off
the
of the
works.
pickup. Yep.
The Class 7, that might have been under bid, so we might have to postpone that till 2019. When I say under bid, the 170, when they went out for the estimate, now doesn't look like it was enough. They were off a bad pricing sheet or something like that. So that might have to get put off.
So is that
This what
dump
we
truck
talk
gonna-
about. You
I know.
We have no hard,
I know, yep.
numbers, and then we,
Yep.
we can't buy anything. This is not something,
Yeah.
I really like the red car, but it's a little bit too much, and you go, well, take the white one. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Now we get nothing.
Is that going to affect our ability to do anything this winter, Mr. Mayor? Not having that new dump truck that they had planned?
No, they've indicated that the fleet they have is fine to handle our fall and winter.
Is our senior van delivery date been set?
I don't think the delivery date has been, but the order is in.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can just comment before we go into further years, sorry, a little bit of it is repetitive, just a few seconds. Again, I'd like to see us do the firehouse and DMF next year, and then maybe roll all that into our bands and do a 20 million long-term bond. That way we're getting the interest rates before they go up, hopefully much more. The DMF has waited long enough. I don't see why we can't do both projects in 1 year as opposed to off-shifting them by 1 year. I think the impact to the taxpayers would be negligible, the 1 year difference. So do both of those projects next year. If the school numbers, like you said, Mike, are anywhere close for their 20-some million, the increase is $130 or so dollars. And so I'd like to see us roll all of our new debt and old debt into a 20 million offering next year. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
I think, Peter, my only concern is, I don't know if we were to take on all this in the same year.
It's a lot.
Big projects, forget the money.
No, it's a lot
I just don't
of
think-
issues going on in town. I agree with you,
Yeah.
Bob. It's a lot going on in one place.
I'm not sure we have the talent set up to make sure this is done properly and monitored and paid for and reported properly and.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to do it wrong.
Right.
If you just bond the money, doesn't mean you have to spend it that year. You could say, okay, we're gonna bond $20 million, and our first thing is,
Firehouse.
well, I like the intersection, but firehouse. We're gonna do the, just me, that's me, okay. But, do the DMF, and then do the firehouse, or the firehouse, and then the DMF, as long as it's bonded, because as Mr. Ullman says, you wanna keep those rates low. Because if those basis points go up, that, 25 basis points on $20 million is huge, it's a big number.
We need
It's a big
our
number.
CFO to give us some guidance, because we should not be permanently bonding the $6 million with the firehouse and the DMF, because those two are permanent structures. They have maturities that we can stretch out and minimize the impact on the residents. The $6 million, we should be looking to pay that off as quickly as possible, along with some of these other consumables.
Mr. Ullman, I agree,
dump
and
truck?
what Bob said about the money that we have sitting there, pay our expenses down with what we have, okay? And then the remainder, we're gonna have to bond.
Yeah, we could do two bond issues, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we
Mr.
need
Weinfeld
to,
had
I think
said
we
that.
need someone
Yeah.
to tell us that.
Oh, yeah, I
And
agree.
lay it out for us.
I agree.
The other thing is, again, going back to some of my initial comments about strategy, do we have any thoughts on shared services? And, the DMF would be one of them. Do we want home rule over the DMF? Would we consider looking at the DMF and sharing that service with another town? Because it might save us having to build a new DMF, might save us having to invest in some of these trucks. Is that something we would consider? And I think it's,
I would consider it.
it's something that we do need. Tony P., for all of her comments, she does have a point that, home rule over all of these items, the police, the fire, the DMF, every other department from top to bottom in a town, results in quite a bit of overlap, quite a bit of duplication?
Duplication of
Duplication.
services.
What am I,
Or-
if I could talk. And should we be looking at this? We're talking about,
Redundancy.
quite a bit of money. So, again, if we're serious about looking at the town, serious about doing the best interest not only for our employees and our volunteers, but for the residents, is shared services at some level something we would consider? We took a low-hanging fruit that was presented last week in the closed session. Do we want to expand that, or do we want home rule over everything?
Mr. Ullman, let me make a suggestion. I think, in the past with the former mayor, we had a shared services committee made up of 2 council people, and we invited Westwood, Woodcliff Lake, Hillsdale, and I think Hohokus came to a couple of meetings. And I'm going to ask the administration if we can restart that process again, talking to other towns and entertaining shared services with surrounding municipalities.
I'm going to say yes and then say something in addition is, I know in the past, we've said that, the council has the ability to form their own committees to do these type of things. So I support it, but that's certainly something that the council can do even without the administration.
Well,
Set up a committee to do this, reach out to the other towns,
I'm going to propose that we do that, okay? And I'm going to ask Mr. Ullman if he would join me in forming that committee. I'd like the approval of the rest of the council to go ahead and proceed in that way. Because again, if we can save any money through duplicative processes, I'm in favor of it. Home rule has its place, and in some areas, in other areas, it does not.
So I appreciate you taking this on, Mr. Cassio, and if Mr. Ullman would like to join him. Mr. Mayor, if these discussions produce the low-hanging fruit, as it has in the past, are you willing to...
Or the high-hanging fruit.
Or the high-hanging fruit, yes.
Take any fruit we can
Are
get.
you willing to look at it in a optimistic and
I'm going to say open mind.
open mind, that you will not just say no to it and not do it like has happened in the past? Because that's what happens in our form of government. We can come up with all these great ideas, but however you can say no to them. So I just want to make sure that you're going to be open-minded to whatever this committee may bring to you.
I certainly would be, because
Thank you.
everyone has been open-minded to the things that I've wanted to do, and so I expect, I would give you nothing
That's all.
less than I asked for. Just a quick reminder, though, when it comes to DMF, I've heard in the past that a lot of people consider our DMF the 4th leg of our emergency services. There's police, fire, ambulance, and DMF. And that's a very resident-oriented service. So I would want to have resident input on that before, even if it made economic sense, to say, is it something the residents are in favor of? Because that,
That's just one area.
Yeah, yes, right, yeah.
I'm all in favor of it, Dr. Cassio, Mr. Ullman, if you'd like.
I'd like a roll call.
Oh, sure. We have a roll call on it?
Yes.
Sure, we can do that. Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Cassio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSena?
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Cassio.
Thank you.
Mr. Ullman?
When can we expect our first report?
What time
How's
is it?
Monday? We'll see.
Gentlemen, so if we update this list to show some of these changes, I'll have Sue email it to everybody. And if you'd like to add, I'll send the original document out in Excel format. If we could update it, and I'll update it based on all the comments we got tonight, and then we could figure out where we want to plug the numbers in and go from there, if that's okay with everybody.
Mr. President, are we going to have the CFO come in and discuss how we're going to structure these things?
I would like to have all the items in place before we do that.
Okay.
Yeah, the CFO has told me, and I think others up here numerous times, she's happy to do anything, but she needs guidance from us as a governing body, what numbers she should be working on. We can't ask her to come up with
Oh, no,
the
that's
things.
not what I think we
She's always
expect.
said to me, hey, if you tell me what you guys need, I'm happy to put it together.
You know, like one of the issues, like Bob just brought up, like right now we have $6.1 million in bands. If we come to agreement to say, let's take $2 million out of the surplus and pay $2 million of the worst bands, like we've noticed, we have, the 10,000s, the 20,000s, maybe eliminate all those by using some of the surplus and getting rid of them, and only going out with a $4 million bond for the bands instead of a 6.1. But those are things we need to put on this list and come to an agreement, and then we'll present it to the CFO from there.
Yeah, I think the question is, I'd go out on a limb right now and say there's easily $2.5 million. So how do we best utilize that? And that's what, to Mike's point, is we need guidance because, okay, so now what? Do we do the bands? Do we not? Do we just buy a truck and don't bond it? You know,
Quite right.
there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts, and that's where she's got to, or, you know, come up with, okay, these are the years, these are the amounts. You give me a number that I can use, maybe I don't use it in 19, I use it in 20, I don't know, you know, but, or I use it for bands, or I don't. But, you know, here's a number, here's an amount you have to reduce something with, and give us the guidance in terms of what you think should happen. So she'll have, Peter, to your point, she'll have all the numbers by year, and if we just, you know, start off and say, use $2.5 million as a reduction somewhere, then she should be able to roll everything out.
Yeah, and I would think she could also guide us in the pros and cons, like you say, Bob, of, you know, do we just take that surplus and buy one of the new trucks, or do we pay off, you know, that area? I think she has probably good input on it.
But see, I don't think we should use the surplus to buy anything new. I think it has to go to, in my eyes, to paying off the bands, because that money was created with creating those bands. So we saved, but we banded other things. So really, we didn't save because we've been putting these costs off for so many years. So that money is really a surplus based on us creating, you know, the former administrations having those bands in place. So I would like to see those bands be paid down with that money, because I don't agree with taking the 6.1 million and bonding it for 20, 30 years, because that's crazy. I agree with Mike, it should be separate bonds. Maybe a short-term bond of 10 years to get rid of the remaining $4 million or whatever
Yeah,
it may
I
be.
mean, this is what she's
But,
got to come
yeah,
back.
that's
And
what
we
she's gotta come
can
back.
ask Lou what his opinion is too, I think.
Well, Meinfeld
We
said he
should
would
get all
weigh in
the
on that
advice we can
too.
get.
Right.
Yeah.
You're so right.
I did have one question, your dialogue with the county executive about the salt and fueling at
Yes.
Newbridge. That's down at the Hackensack Pagoda.
No, it is right down the street right in Paramus, right down the street.
The old hospital, the
By
old
Bergen Pines.
Oh, that's not Newbridge Landing.
That's
It
what
is now.
it
Well-
is now, it is now New Bridge Landing.
Yeah.
Newbridge Landing is where the Steuben House is.
The new, Bergen Pines has been renamed
Yeah,
New Bridge.
Newbridge. Yes, that's its new
Oh.
name,
Yes.
under its new
That's-
And
management.
the county,
You
and
can
the
see it from
county,
the
and the
parkway.
county is referring to it
And
as
that's
the
where
New
the
Bridge
gas
building.
up.
The gas fueling station is there. and
It
the
seemed to
salt
us,
is-
knowing
okay,
the
I'm
old
sorry, I missed-
Newbridge,
oh,
Yeah, that's a long way down to the.
that's a
Steuben
long
House.
way to get
No,
a
no,
tank of
it is,
gas.
No,
it is
Newbridge.
less than a mile away, so that was.
That's the old New Bridge, this is the new New Bridge.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the new Bridge. Sorry, gentlemen.
Thank you
Yeah.
for the clarification.
It's the new county facilities that have been built by the former Bergen Pines Regional Medical
It's
Center.
visible from the parkway.
Yes, correct.
So our trucks, the nice
Thank
thing
you.
about it is the trucks would go there. The backup alarms and everything would be there, not in Township, when they're loading salt in the middle of the night.
Is it that bad here?
Oh, I guess the residents do hear it, but,
Yeah.
you know, so they wouldn't hear it any longer. And the fueling is a great thing because they're
Yeah.
buying it in such bulk that it's cheaper than going to the gas station like we do now.
Yeah, that sounded like a lot of pluses, but we'll analyze what they had to say.
Is that, yeah, I apologize. I should have said New Bridge Medical Center, not New
Yeah,
Bridge.
New
Landing.
Bridge and Paramus.
Yes.
So it's not Bergen Regional.
No, it's
No, no
called New
more.
Bridge Landing.
That's all right, I
Medical
still call it
Center.
the
Yeah.
Pines.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Anything else, gentlemen?
The only thing I throw out is, do we want to discuss this a little bit at each meeting, or do we want to set up another special meeting
Let me,
3 weeks from now? Yeah, I mean, I rather weeknights as opposed to tying up a Saturday if we want specials, but I don't know everyone else's schedule.
If it's okay with everybody, I'll update the spreadsheet to show all the changes we discussed today. And then maybe we'll put it on the conference agenda from going forward, and it'll be a work in progress.
And special meetings as needed.
Yes, if that's okay with
I don't
everybody.
think we need special. If
What's
we're
that?
doing it-
We need to move forward.
Yes,
Not Monday, but the
yeah,
following.
following, yeah.
If we're doing it every 2 weeks.
That's what
I don't
you just
think-
said, the
yeah, I
next
don't think
meeting,
we
not
need-
this Monday
Yeah, I
night,
know,
but
I'm
the
just saying, I
following.
don't think we'll need a special,
No.
Saturday or weekday meeting for something like this. I think we have a pretty good idea how we want to attack it, what we're looking at, and then it's just a matter of, funding this stuff. and
We're
how-
mostly all in agreement as to what
Yeah.
needs to be done. It's a
Mhm.
kind of no-brainer, it's just the timing of
Again,
certain things.
You got to
yeah.
keep the impact, as
As reasonable as
reasonable
possible.
as possible for the residents.
Do I have a motion to adjourn, gentlemen?
Motion.
Second.
Councilman Bruno?
Yes.
Councilman Casio?
Yes.
Councilman Cumming?
Yes.
Councilman Ullman?
Yes.
Council President DeSenza.
Yes. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Township Council will be on Monday, October 1st, 2018, beginning at 7:30. Thank you, everybody.
Look forward to seeing you.